What is up, y'all? It's Alina, and in this video, we'll be talking about the May 2021 full moon that is also a blood moon, a flower moon, a supermoon, and a lunar eclipse, all in the sign of Sagittarius. So if learning about that interests you, then let's get started. What is up, y'all? How you doing? I hope you're doing well. In this video, we will be diving into all things May 26th, full moon in the sign of Sagittarius, why it has all of these titles of blood moon, flower moon, super moon, why this eclipse will be amplifying the power of this full moon. We'll also be talking about the transit surrounding it, how you can harness this energy, and at the end of this, I will be sharing some full moon customized journal writing prompts. That way we can dive deeper into the themes of this full moon. With all of that said, let's dive in. First things first, why is this full moon so important? The full moon in astrology is seen as a culmination point of sorts. It occurs halfway through the lunar cycle, with it beginning with a new moon and ending with another new moon. And just as we see the light build in the sky leading up to its peak brightness, so too can our intentions and goals start to manifest and build in momentum leading up to this peak. This is why you see during the full moon it being described as a cosmic spotlight, illuminating what has and hasn't been working for you halfway through your lunar journey. You can oftentimes see people doing full moon rituals where they're writing out what no longer serves them with this newfound clarity that the full moon can bring. And with this full moon occurring in the curious and philosophical sign of Sagittarius, we might find newfound clarity that stems from us looking at our day-to-day problems and our life from a zoomed out bird's eye view. Now, before we dive even deeper into the transits, how to harness this energy, let's talk about what exactly a blood moon, supermoon, flower moon, and eclipse actually means energetically for us. Now, for a blood moon, historically, it was usually only given to specific lunar eclipses that were associated with the end of times. But in modern times, we call any total lunar eclipse a blood moon. This happens because when the Earth casts its shadow on the full moon, what is left around it, the rays of the sun, can make the moon appear red. Now, while the astrological meaning behind a blood moon varies depending on who you ask, a lunar eclipse in general is seen as an amplification of the energy of the full moon that's already there. Now, a flower moon is just the general name that's given to the first full moon of May, and it signifies this new blooming season in spring. Next, a supermoon occurs when the moon is uniquely closer to the Earth, more so than any other time of the year. Scientifically, this explains why the moon will appear bigger and brighter in the sky during this full moon. And astrologically, this is why the full moon can energetically have an even more potent impact in our lives. And finally, eclipses in astrology are seen as some of the most dramatic events out of the entire zodiac year. I like to call them full moons or new moons on steroids. Eclipses can tend to be solar events that can uproot us and shift our paths or cause us to create a brand new path in our lives. So now that we understand all of this context around the full moon before we get into transits, you can see how amplified this full moon's energy is going to be. We have it being a supermoon amplifying its energy because the moon is closer to the Earth. We have it being a total lunar eclipse, also amplifying its energy. And with this full moon falling in the social, philosophical sign of Sagittarius, there will definitely be many themes of just expanding our perspectives, opening our minds, and being open to new approaches and paths to get to where we'd like to be. Next, let's get into the transit surrounding this full moon. First, on May 20th, we have the sun entering the sign of Gemini, marking the beginning of Gemini season. Woo! My birthday is actually on the 22nd, and I have a little too many placements of Gemini all over my charts. Now is a great time for tapping into the social butterfly within you. This time is very conducive with learning, connecting with people, communicating, whether it's verbal or through the internet, and recognizing that all people and things on this earth are a teacher to you. Like mentioned before, all full moons occur when the Earth moves between both the moon and the sun. Now, this opposition can create themes of striking balance between two extremes, that being between the moon that is in the sign of Sagittarius and the sun, which will be in the sign of Gemini. While we'll experience the energetic themes from this Gemini sun of wanting to be more social, out and about, and even seeking more information from other people, as Gemini energy is very, very great with communication, airflow, the words. We will see the fire sign of Sagittarius from the moon opposing that, with maybe feeling called to be more introspective, to explore our own philosophies. And so those extremes will be playing a very important role during this time, but they are very complementary as well. Both signs are very curious about the world at large, understanding our place in the universe and beyond. Next, the new moon will be squaring Jupiter. Now, Jupiter, the ruling planet of the moon, is in the sign of Pisces. Now, this will add heightened intuition, clairvoyance, and emotions during this lunar event. This can create emotional highs and lows along with stronger gut feelings. Like I mentioned before, oftentimes we can associate emotions and the expression or free flowing of emotions to be negative, but as long as we are not hurting other people, holding space for our emotions can be an important catalyst to getting to know our intuitive abilities as well. So utilizing this time by prioritizing moments of stillness and mindfulness like meditation, journaling, engaging in talk therapy, and just holding space for the moment and your emotions will be very beneficial at a time like this. And finally, on May 22nd or 23rd, depending on your time zone, we will see Saturn going retrograde. Now, Saturn retrogrades can often be associated with experiencing more stagnation when it comes to our work or what we are trying to manifest. Now, while this resistance can cause stress and frustration, oftentimes Saturn retrogrades are kind of like how I would describe a stress test. If you imagine that you're a boat and you're just floating along during the normal times of the year, a retrograde, specifically with Saturn, can be like a stress test where you see where all of the leaks in the boat are. While they are very frustrating at the time, they can be great indicators of where you can work on yourself to prevent any type of hiccups or issues when you're all the way at sea. Next, what should you expect to feel? The full moon in general already is a time of heightened energy. I literally have had friends who were nurses, EMTs, even a friend who worked for the coroner's office. And I asked them all separately. They don't even know each other. I asked them, have you experienced an increase in, crimes and people coming into the hospital during full moons? All of them said a resounding yes, telling me the craziest stories that they experienced. So with that said, I think it will be very important to be careful, to hold space for people's emotions and yours, while also recognizing that boundaries are very important. Earth signs and fire signs, I really feel like y'all are going to be the friends who are going to be holding space for other people's heightened emotions during this time. Air signs, I feel like y'all are going to be riding an emotional wave. Regardless of the element behind your sign, now will be a time of heightened energy. Next, how do we harness this energy? First, I would recommend utilizing this Sagittarius full moon's widening our perspective, giving us a bird's eye view of our lives to truly reflect on what no longer serves you. I actually feel really called to remind y'all of the very distracting and reality distorting nature of social media. From a bird's eye view, what really matters in your life right now? How can you make even a small step towards aligning more so with that than the day-to-day? I've actually created an entire video describing how I do my full moon rituals that will be linked on the screen here and in the video description below. Next, hold space for some intuitive messages. The potency of this full moon is going to be wild. And like I mentioned before, the moon is the major astral body to impact our emotions. We have it squaring off with Jupiter, which will be in the sign of Pisces, which will really bring in intuitive, clairvoyant messages and energy for us. This can look like gut feelings, premonitions, really noticing somebody's energy as soon as they walk into the room. All of these things are just a fraction of the examples of the different types of intuitive abilities that we all can possess. Unfortunately, in this society, it isn't talked about enough, so I highly recommend doing some research into it, specifically what your cultures, historically have talked about in relation to intuition, especially around this full moon. All right, and finally, let's get into these journal writing prompts. What I'll do is put up the writing prompts on the screen. When you see them, I invite you to pause the video, write them out, and when we're done, I'll come back. When was the last time the term hindsight is 20/20 was most relevant to you? what are some wins from the previous month that you are most proud of yourself for? What is something you have emotionally held on to that feels small in the grand scheme of things? What are 2 to 3 things that no longer serve you and that you are ready to release? All right, y'all, if you made it to the end of this video, I invite you to comment if you have already been experiencing any of these lunar full moon themes. I know I always do, usually a week before. If not that, then what came up for you during these journal writing prompts? And if none of those, I invite you to comment 3 red rose emojis, because we are blooming in this spring season, okay? All of this is growth. And with all of that said, I will leave you with my favorite quote, and that is, be gentle with yourself, because life is about the journey and not the destination. All right, bye friends.